Let's start with the legend of the week, this guy from Wisconsin who crashed MSNBC Live.
So the people there are just not worried about it, Cal? Are they not worried about their own personal safety?
I haven't met anybody who is. I met some folks actually from Lake Geneva who lived in the area. They were staying a few miles outside of town where I were, and they said they're worried about it. They're worried about that second spike. They're worried about folks coming in from Chicago. But they'll quickly add at the same time, this is a place that relies on that business. I think people here want a little bit more funding when it comes to these programs so that they could stay closed. But again, I think people felt like the Supreme Court made the decision here in Wisconsin that it was time to open up. But you can see here, just around. Nobody's wearing them. Nobody's. The there you go, including the cameraman. Yeah. Katie.
Striking images. Cal Perry. Cal, thank you very much. And Kathy Park, you.
Legend. Half your crew's not wearing them. That was great. Not everything that happened yesterday was funny. Social media companies took censorship to a whole new level by fact-checking the president under his tweet for the first time ever. This is revolutionary. Imagine learning in history class, this was the day that Twitter decided to fact-check the president on Twitter. What a bizarre lesson that's going to be in the future. Anyway, his tweet said, "There is no way, zero, that mail-in ballots will be anything less than substantially fraudulent. Mailboxes will be robbed, ballots will be forged, and even illegally printed out and fraudulently signed. The governor of California is sending ballots to millions of people. Anyone living in the state, no matter who they are or how they got there, will get one." That will be followed up with professionals telling all these people, many of whom have never even thought of voting before, how and for whom to vote. This will be a rigged election. No way. So you can see it says get the facts about mail-in ballots, for the first time censoring the president and leading you to what they want you to see. And when you click that, it brings you to this screen. It says Trump makes unsubstantiated claim that mail-in ballots will lead to voter fraud. What you need to know, Trump falsely claimed that mail-in ballots would lead to a rigged election. However, fact checkers say there is no evidence that mail-in ballots are linked to voter fraud. They go on to link to their trusted experts, CNN, Chris Kaliza, who obviously has a massive anti-Trump, anti-Republican, anti-conservative, pro-Democratic Party stance. So these are the new fact checkers. The Washington Post. Analysis, a review of Trump's many unsubstantiated allegations of voter fraud. Their bias couldn't be more obvious. And the new owner, Jeff Bezos, also owns Amazon, doing extraordinarily during this shutdown, and clearly him and the president don't agree on taxes and other things. If you keep scrolling, it says experts point out that mail-in voting is very rarely linked to fraud. So these are the experts. Remember the experts that told you at the World Health Organization that the mortality rate of coronavirus was 3.4? They smeared the president for dare questioning the experts, and then they found out recently, after lowering it several times, that it's even lower than what they previously lowered it to. And they can't even for sure say that what he said was fake because one, it's a prediction of what he thinks is going to happen in the future, and two, we'll get into it in a second, but obviously cheating in an election is not only possible, it's actually happened multiple times in the past couple weeks.
Good point, and I yield to Mr. Nadler.
Thank you. It's a very tempting point. As a very experienced practical politician from New York, I feel constrained to observe that in my experience in New York, paper ballots are extremely susceptible to fraud. And at least with the old clunky voting machines that we have in New York, the deliberate fraud is way down compared to paper. When the machines break down and they vote on paper, we've had real problems. So there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. I'm simply observing that as a problem. There's got to be a way of getting the best of our methodologies.
But in fact, the MIT studies have shown that hand-counted paper ballots are among the most reliable. And at least if there's a miscount, you can discover it. You can't discover miscounts with these machines.
Maybe optical scan with paper. I want a paper trail. I want paper somewhere. But pure paper with no machines, I can show you experience which would make your head spin.
And we thank you for...
CNN Business, Twitter labeled Trump tweets with a fact check for the first time. Even they admitted right at the beginning that it was potentially misleading. Potentially. Why can't they say that it's fully misleading? Well, the reason is because it's really not. Outside of Republicans and Democrats and your political bias, let's just use our brains for a second. There's multiple ways to cheat in an election, and our elected officials and our media should really spend their time trying to crack down and make sure our elections are fair, instead of being a PR team for everyone who suggests that elections could possibly be skewed is a conspiracy theorist. Before we talk about mail-in ballots, let's talk about the digital voting. This was in the Washington Post. Hackers were told to break into US voting machines. They didn't have much trouble. There's a video you could probably find at DEF CON, which is a hacker conference, them showing how easy it is to hack into a voting machine. A follow-up on that suggests that voting machines are still stupidly insecure, says DEF CON hackers. And that's the digital side of it that Twitter and a lot of these news networks never want to spend time talking about. It's almost like they don't want fair elections, and they just want to act like anybody who suggests the election won't be fair is a crazy kooky person who needs to be censored. Within this month, they found a South Philly judge of elections admit he took bribes to stuff the ballot box for Democratic candidates. So it's not even a possibility that something could happen. It literally just happened, was in mainstream news, and they still have the audacity and the nerve to censor and fact check the president for saying something could happen that literally just happened. And it's not just Democrats cheating, so liberals should be concerned as well. The Seattle Times found out recently that the Fed said West Virginia mail carrier altered ballot requests, and that was for Republicans. So it's not just a left or right issue. If you care about fair elections, you should think about this stuff and spend more energy trying to make them fair instead of acting like fraud doesn't exist, which is what a lot of Democrats do for some reason. They've convinced their voter base that O'Rourke seeks end of voter ID laws that he calls racist. The thrilling Yes article saying voter registration is inherently racist. You can't get on a plane without an ID, you can't get cigarettes without an ID, you can't get a hotel room without an ID, you can't get on a cruise boat without an ID, you can't sign a new lease without an ID, you can't do almost anything in this country without an ID, but Democrats want to convince you that you should be able to vote without an identification because registering and verifying your actual identity so there's no fraud is somehow racist. And this is what a lot of these people given big positions at social media companies actually think. Speaking of people at social media companies who have a lot of influence, let's check out the head of site integrity at Twitter, Yoel Roth. The integrity is probably just flowing out of this guy so he can tell everybody else, including the president, what to say and to not say, except for the fact that he obviously has a wild bias. I'm just saying we fly over those states that voted for a racist tangerine for a reason, making fun of middle America, saying the flyover states are purposely flown over because there's racists there. He also said, how does a personality-free bag of farts like Mitch McConnell actually win elections? It's actually kind of funny. This one's a little more biased. Today on Meet the Press, we're speaking with Joseph Goebbels about the first 100 days, what I hear when Kellyanne is on a news show, suggesting that Kellyanne Conway is like the Nazi propagandist leader Joseph Goebbels. And if you think I'm exaggerating about him calling the Trump administration actual Nazis, here's a tweet that says, yes, that person in the pink hat is clearly a bigger threat to your brand of feminism than actual Nazis in the White House. So the head of site integrity at Twitter, who seemingly happens to be Jewish, has no problem exaggerating and lying about the president of the United States, who's massively pro-Israel. He calls him an actual Nazi in the White House. And trust me, he's not alone. When AOC said that there were concentration camps at the border, Vox said, I'm a Jewish historian. Yes, we should call border detention centers concentration camps. Holocaust survivor at the Daily Beast, yes, the border detention centers are like concentration camps. So despite the concentration camps in Nazi Germany being a place where Jewish people couldn't leave, they took them from where they were at and put them there. This is the quite opposite. People are coming to the United States of America because they want to live a better life and they want to be here. And then border security enforces the law that literally every Democrat believed in until President Trump won. And now all of a sudden it's literally like the Holocaust according to certain people.
The first of these 7 principles is that illegal immigration is wrong, plain and simple. Until the American people are convinced that we will stop future flows of illegal immigration, we will make no progress on dealing with the millions of illegal immigrants who are here now and on rationalizing our system of legal immigration. It's plain and simple and unavoidable. When we use phrases like undocumented workers, We convey a message to the American people that their government is not serious about combating illegal immigration.
It's really sad to see people this dishonest, hypocritical, and with major lack of integrity running integrity departments on social media and others. But this idea that they're trying to fact check Trump for disagreeing with the experts or themselves is crazy, because there's been dozens of times that Trump did this. They called it fake news and then it ended up being right. I don't even have time for all of them because it would be a 30-minute video, but here's a few. When he shut down travel earlier than the Democrats wanted to in January, Nancy Pelosi tweeted, "The Trump's admin's expansion of its un-American travel ban is a threat to our security, our values, and the rule of law, barring more than 350 million people from predominantly African countries from traveling to the U.S. This rule is discrimination disguised as policy." So him shutting down travel early is racist, despite the fact these same people would later say in March that he didn't act early enough and that his lack of acting was what caused all of this. The hypocrisy and delusion never seems to end. Same with many media sites shaming him for saying the WHO's 3.4% global death rate was wrong, which it was, obviously, by a lot. And this has happened literally dozens of times. It's almost every other week. I mean, you could check out all the videos I've done on my page for the last 3 years. They never stop lying. They never stop shaming, deleting, and censoring anybody who disagrees with them, even though most of the time they're not right. And now they've even taken that censorship to the President of the United States for suggesting that there could be voter fraud and election fraud, when we do know, whether it's digitally, physically, mail-in ballots, or the people who count the ballots, there not only can be fraud and cheating, there has been fraud and cheating, and it would be nice to live in a country that wasn't run by a bunch of lying politicians and dishonest, snake-like lying media who actually spent their time trying to make sure our election was secure and safe, as opposed to smearing and censoring anybody who suggests the truth, which is, it's not secure and safe, and it could be much more secure and much more safe. Thank you for listening. God bless you guys. Have a beautiful week. I'll be back with more videos, and if you'd like to support, sign up to my free email list at stayintouchwithme.com.